All right. Well, thanks, guys. So today we're just going to walk through the SharpSpring environment. And before we really get started, I wanted to just give a brief overview of what our application is built to deliver. Now, SharpSpring is an end-to-end marketing service that allows you to identify and expand your lead base and to really understand where that lead generation is emanating from. And then all the way through being able to express your marketing strategies to be more consistent with your implementation, to capitalize on engagement, and to encourage where there is a lack of, all the way through customer conversion, tying it back to that lead generation to get that holistic understanding of what of your message is really resonating. So ultimately, that's kind of the framework in which our application is built. And today, we're going to highlight some of the ways that we can help facilitate that. Now, the foundation of a lot of our application is really predicated on informing the software what's happening. Very easy concept to illustrate by showing you that the first step that you would take to getting more out of the solution would be to simply track your website. Now, one of the things that is powerful about our solution is that we can track as many environments as you push content to, really liberating you and allowing you to wrap all of your engagement in one area. Now, if you only push content to one website, that's also a great place to start. Now, what you see here are just aggregate information about organic activity on your site. Now, you might have access to this type of information in other environments, but one thing that you'll start to notice about our platform is that we will not only display bulk information where you have a number of how many page visits or where they went to or where they came from, but we're going to start to drill down on who those people are. And really how we make good on the idea of lead generation is through a feature that we call campaigns. Now, I just want to give you a brief example of what our solution would start to look like, because I think it really underscores the concept of what the outcome can be when we implement the solution. Now, campaigns, again, are really the starting point for lead generation. It's simply a source that people connect to you from. So what was it that pulled them in? And that's really the idea here. So again, one of the things that can be done in other environments is again to understand the quantity that a source is having, right? The impact. So something like a Google Analytics or an AdWords, right? They're going to let you understand how many people came from a source. But where our solution really continues that narrative is that not only can you see that quantity number, but you also have access to who those people are, right? Which is ultimately what we need to understand the quality of those sources. Now, quality is something that could be depicted both financially in terms of identifying the investment that you made to the source, which would start to generate a cost per lead. And if you were to use our environment to facilitate the customer conversion aspect that we talked about in the overview, you would have that projected revenue per lead, which would produce that tangible return on investment. Now, if you have a little bit of impedance to understand and document the financial investment that you made in sources, you want to look at the quality of your marketing endeavors, not just financially. We also have the ability to look at it in terms of engagement, where we could see what is the overall activity that people coming from this source are having, so we could see the retention that the messaging is having. So this will really give you a clear understanding of where you want to invest your outreach. All right. So in essence, there are 4 ways to bring information into the platform, because for us to associate names and faces to those sources, right, we need to have that kind of information. So the 4 ways that we can bring information in would be through a form submission. We have a fully relevant form builder that allows you to empower people to self-identify any information that you'd find impactful. We also work with third-party forms, so if you have things that are up and running that are customer-facing, we just want to make sure that we render every submission inside of our environment. We also have an import tool, allows you to bring information in bulk. We also have an open API, so if you're using other softwares to collect information, we just want to make sure, again, that we have the most current and up-to-date customer base possible. And the last thing is we always have the ability to create records through manual concession. Now, I wanted to take a look at what a record looks like inside of our environment, because I think it really underscores a lot of what's possible. So this is what our individual records look like. They all have the same UI. And one thing that I find really impactful about our solution is really just the intuitive nature of the UI or the layout. It's pretty easy to find what you're looking for and when you need to find it. Now, I wanted to first start by just illustrating that on the contact record, we have what we call standard or system fields. These are available here on the left, and you'll see things like personal information, first name, last name, contact records, any kind of company affiliation as well. Now, this is pretty standard fare for organizing the data that you've collected on people. We also have the ability to create custom fields. Now, this is something that allows you to document and update information that's unique and impactful for your environment. Now, we have no limitation on the amount of fields that you can create and a wide variety of field types in order to represent the information accurately. So everything from a file upload field to a text input to a pick list, right? Now, when I talked about the intuitive nature of our application, I think that that's no better represented by this next feature here. This is something that we call the life of the lead. It's absolutely one of our most useful features and just really allows you to understand how a relationship with someone has unfolded over time. Now, what this is a visual depiction of all the touch points that you've had with someone, and it's done so in a linear fashion. So you can really see how the narrative unfolds over time. Now, some of the events that you'll see represented here on Life of Lead include email engagement. Now, these are emails that are built inside of the platform as we have a full content suite, which we'll take a look at here in a moment. So any email or message that's built in our platform and sent to someone in your base will be represented here, plus the outcome of that, if they opened it, if they engaged with any part of it. We also have the ability to sync your user-based accounts. So if you are G Suite users or Microsoft users or custom Exchange users, if you so choose, you can tie in your personal business accounts to the application to get a fuller representation of all the discourse that you've had with every individual inside of your environment. Now, once we've had a conversion event simply being a form fill or a click through, we will have visibility into all web visits, form submissions, sales events, social interactions, etc. Now, each one of these events, again, provides a host of information depending on what the interaction is. So, for example, here's a web visit where you'll see the URL that was visited, the full breadth of the browser session, a timestamp, and then the source that someone emanated from. If it was a form fill, you would see the form that was submitted and then all the information that came with that individual send. So again, this really allows people that you're working with, allows you to be up to speed in a moment's notice. And then also in terms of connectivity internally, it does a great job of informing people that aren't personally involved as to what's going on. All right. Now, I mentioned that we have a full content suite, and that is absolutely something that we provide. We have an email builder. Obviously, we have a form builder that I mentioned earlier. We have an email builder, a landing page tool, a blog extension of our landing page tool, a social platform, among other things. Now, I don't want to spend a ton of time on the content piece, but a few things that I would like to highlight include our customization features. This is an example of our email editor, again, HTML based, where we provide 42 different base templates for you to create from, which you can customize. It's a drag and drop WYSIWYG editor that allows you to be as proactive inside of creation as you'd like to be. Now, the two customization features I think that really allow you to get more out of your outreach and interactions are the merge variable and dynamic content. So the merge variable is something that is really common in terms of digital platforms. It's something that you've probably either experienced or used prior. It's simply the ability to tap into the information that you collect on the individual level and insert it directly into content. The most commonly used version of this would be the first name because it allows you to personally greet each person that you send content to. So again, a great way to acknowledge what you know about someone. Now understand that with the merge variable, it's not just these standard fields, so first name, industry or company, things that are really impactful to merge in to the conversation, but it's any piece of custom information as well. So again, anything that you know about someone, you can utilize as collateral in your communication with them. Now, dynamic content, I personally see as an evolution of the merge variable. Instead of it uses the same base material, so that data or information that you collect on the individual level, but instead of inserting it into email, what it does is it allows you to gate what it is that you're sending. So, for example, someone that was in the financial industry, let's say that you could have a unique image and content piece and sectional for that person, as opposed to somebody in the medical industry that might be more responsive to different imagery and different information here. Ultimately, what we're really trying to do with our outreach is to provide the right message for the right person. And this is one of the ways that we can deliver on that idea. Very powerful. All right. Now, these customization features are available not only in our email editor, but also in our landing page tool. So you'll have the ability to send dynamically responsive outreach, pushing them to a responsive environment to really increase your engagement and retention rate. Now, a lot of our content pieces, again, are ways for you to provide information to people and allow them to engage and respond to what's really resonating with them. We create campaigns to understand the source of that engagement or responsiveness and to understand where that footprint is in terms of your outreach. Now, everything really culminates inside of our automation engine in terms of our strategy. So I wanted to go here next. Like with the life of a lead, I also think this feature specifically does a great job of being really intuitive in its presentation. I think that really once you have worked with the engine just a little bit, the logic of it will make it very easy for you to understand and to get a little more out of all of the features you have access to. This here is a very basic and straightforward representation of what an automation would look like. And again, I think that very basic automations are sometimes and most times the most successful. So logic is the easiest way to explain the automation logic is simply thinking of it as cause and effect. Now here we have an easy automation cycle that the cause is simply a form fill. The effect is a confirmation email that's being sent out, right? Beginning and end. Now let's look at a little bit more diverse process. Again, very simple, but this starts to show you the flexibility that the engine provides. Now, we won't have time today to get into all of the different features that we provide to segment and empower you to interact with your base in all the ways that we can. But one I wanted to touch on here, because it's a part of this cycle, is something that we call lead score. Now, lead score is a fantastic way to empower your environment to be responsive to the people that you're working with. Now, lead score is simply a numeric representation of someone's viability or connectivity with you. What I like about it is that you can tailor this to reflect what you find important. So, for example, lead score is really built on two different wells. The first one is fit, so that is information on the contact record, right? Think of it as a target audience. And so when someone meets an exact demographic that would be impactful for you, the right industry, the right location, the right title, what have you, you can reward them numerically and it culminates in this lead score. Now we also have what we call engagement. So that's what people do. So if we go back to our life of the lead and look at every time someone fills out a form or they hit the site or they click through an email, these are different engagement points that the platform's recognizing, and we want to reward people for that because it gives us a clearer picture of the type of person that they are. So when you see here this lead score and you click on this, you could see how that score was accumulated. Now, why I kind of went through that is because in one of the ways that we can use lead scores in our automation strategy, again, we go back to the idea of cause and effect. Here, the initial cause is I sent out this email, right? Let's say I sent this email out to 100 people. Now, inside of this email, we have a call to action, a button. So that really explains what the email is describing. And what we're wanting to do is capitalizing on people that click through that offer. Now, using the idea of lead scoring will show you the ways that we can really handle any type of person that enters into that engagement cycle. So we see here, when I send out this email to 100 people and 50 people click through it, the people that have been with us for some time, or they are part of our target audience, they have a lead score in this case of 50 or more, they are going to be organized into this environment, this list, and I'm going to follow up with this content or this email. Now, people that are newer to our environment or a little bit outside of our target audience, they have a lead score of 49 or less, they'll be put into a wholly different marketing process to make sure that they're at one point ready for this kind of association and this kind of follow-up. So this really just again starts to typify how automation can really capitalize on engagement, make your processes more consistent externally, and make your internal team more efficient in capitalizing on what your base is doing. All right. So again, that really summarizes a lot of the marketing strategies and features that we offer. So from here, I just kind of wanted to segue into the idea of customer conversion. So we think about the idea of lead generation, really typified by site tracking and campaign construction. We think about the idea of marketing strategy, utilizing the automation engine to parlay all the content features that we have to really highlight people that we think are the most viable leads, opportunities, and customers. We can really start to capitalize on those individuals inside of our pipeline feature. Now, this is a typical sales pipeline, but I want to stress the fact that to me, the most dynamic part of this part of the application is its flexibility. You can make this represent almost anything that you need it to. So again, this feature would typically be used for a sales cycle, but you can use it for non-financial based process and really think of it as an organizational tool. This is a sales environment where we have 5 what we call stages or points along the process. Now, what I like again is if your process was a little more abbreviated, you could have a 2-stage pipeline. If yours was a little more elaborate, you could have a 10-stage pipeline, 15-stage pipeline. It's really up to you. The other part about this is that you can have as many pipelines as you find impactful. So if you have a multitude of processes, go ahead and create unique environments for each one of them. That really empowers you to get the most out of this part of the platform. Again, identifying what the stages are will allow you to be more organized in your outreach. In this example, we have background research, outreach, presentation, deal arrangement, and contract out. Just from a glance, from a management standpoint, I could see where all of my ongoing relationships sit without having to monitor all of my customer facing users. From a usage level, I can just focus on the people that are ongoing in my relationships, right? So again, this really allows you to be more effective in what you're doing. Each one of these tiles represents what we call an opportunity. That's simply an ongoing relationship. So it allows you to have all of the information that you would need to facilitate that relationship all in one place. Now, again, being able to customize this and work through all of the processes that you need is something that's going to accelerate, hopefully, your efficiency and allow you to understand how to most effectively interact with people. We looked at the idea of our automation engine here. One thing that is compelling about our sales process as well is that you can parlay some of those automated features inside of this environment as well to be more consistent with how this process works. You can have stage-based automation that will instruct your internal team on how to facilitate each relationship at every step along the way. We can have clarity into what you need to accomplish in any given day by creating what we call tasks and to be able to access them inside of your task manager. This is something that will empower people to be more effective in session and provide them with the information they need to satisfy all the objectives they have on their docket for today, for this week, for this month, right? So again, when we talk about that internal efficiency, this is one of the ways that we start to have access to it. Ultimately, the impact of the pipeline environment really will be felt in terms of campaigns, because if you think about, again, we talked about looking at the quality of your marketing initiatives by utilizing the sales tools that we just walked through. You start to see the financial footprint that outreach is really having, because all of those closed opportunities will start to be connected to your marketing initiatives, giving you that hard return on investment. All right, so that's kind of it. Again, there's a lot of, I could stretch that out for 2 hours. I can make it even shorter, but that's really our package in a whole. Obviously, I didn't touch on a ton of stuff, but I try to highlight the process. Now, that would be not somebody necessarily that's on a usage level. Again, that would be more for an inquisitive lead that wanted to look under the hood, but didn't actually want to take off the filter, right? Didn't want to change the gaskets. They just want to make sure the engine's there, right? And that's legit. So that's kind of the surface level for them. Again, we can get far more specific. Traditionally, when you're going through a presentation like that, there'll be a lot of places where people stop, or they'll be like, "Hey, what is that? Can you show me this again?" They'll have a specific question. What I like about the live environment is that when you get people to start asking questions, it's twofold beneficial. One, when people are asking questions, it means they're paying attention and they see that value in it. Two, you get to address something that they actually care about, which is always a win. And three, when they ask a question, it really informs me as to where their knowledge gap is or what they're really interested in, so I can really start to move in that direction a little more effectively. So that's ultimately why we want to leave presentations fairly aerial, right? And then drill down when they call attention to things that they find impactful. So sometimes, again, I only looked at a one content piece, one segmenting tool, right? So on the marketing side, we can really get into it. I didn't even pull up any of the analytics here except for campaigns. But we have a whole custom reporting page that is really cool that I've been using a lot in terms of presentations. But I wanted to, again, keep this fairly like aerial, right, for lack of a better word, and make it kind of applicable to any generic user, not or lead, instead of like highlighting like, okay, here are some marketing results, or here are some sales results, or here are some internal task results, or what have you. So, but yeah, so hopefully that was beneficial. Again, that's kind of the vibe I have when I'm going through it. You could do it so many different ways. One thing that I like is that everybody here, I work on a team, right? So everybody on my team has a little bit of a different style. Obviously, we're all using the same base material, but you gravitate towards the things that you find interesting. Some tips that I really like is try to incorporate, especially for an initial presentation, if you're going to show off the platform, you want to gravitate and try to show off the more visually compelling features, right? Life the lead, number one. To me, that's the feature that translates the most because everyone can relate to it. It's awesome. And it's almost impossible to not see value in it, right? Because anyone that's used a platform like, I don't know, Salesforce or any other, you know, solution like similar to ours, they have something like this, but it's just nowhere nearly as intuitive, and the presentation is great. Again, you can get into the long-term benefit, where because we retain all the touch points over long periods of time. So again, it can have short-term and then management implications down the road, because you basically have the lifespan of your interactions with somebody all right here, which is great. So this just really provides that connectivity. So number one, always show life of the lead if you're going to show off the platform. The second one is me personally, I think the automation engine looks great. I think that the aesthetic of it translates, as long as you keep it basic first and talk about the logic. And then if you want to get more elaborate, yeah, let's do it, right? Some people really like, the automation, like the spaghetti stuff, right? So some people really like more elaborate things, and you can get as dramatic as you want to. If you think that it'd be more impactful to have a big spread out process that can deal with all kinds of things, that can be really good as well. But you want to be relatable initially. You don't want to lead off with something that's like 47 filters and all these different offshoot paths and doing all this crazy stuff, because people will just get intimidated. Start small, then get a little bit bigger. If that's enough, great. You just want to be able to show diversity, right? So that, hey, we can go in so many different directions. Sometimes if they a very common question is what can cause automation. I didn't go into it when I was just walking through this part of the call, but and I'm not even showing anymore. Oh, Jesus, sorry.
You're there.
Um, uh, I was a lot of times I like to show off or talk through the trigger base, right? So that really typifies kind of how you can use the engine, right? So automation triggers or causes are centered around engagement, fit, and sales, right? So what do we know about you? What have you done? And are you active in the sales process? So those are the things that can power the automation engine. So that sometimes is really helpful to illustrate as well. Again, I think that painting that kind of picture is really helpful. I love walking through the campaign analytics, even if it's just on that kind of broad level, because that's return on investment and quality impact of your outreach. I think is something that is universally applicable. It's something that a lot of other softwares can struggle to deliver, and something I think that resonates with everyone. So that's another feature that I love to incorporate when I'm walking through things. So do you have any questions for me? Anything you'd like me to kind of go back through or kind of talk through of what my logic is, or would you like me to walk through a specific feature point to point?
I think what you did was great. This, for my purposes at this point, I just wanted to have the guys sort of sit through a presentation so that they could get a sense of the big picture on how it was marketed out. We'll want to start going through a couple of these individual opportunities. And I say me and maybe you, so that we can then try to get some sales.
So another thing that's great. Sometimes people. So I spent a little bit of time in our email content editor, right? Talking a little bit about. I love dynamic content. To me, it's one of our best features. So I like to kind of go through this.